It's a brisk morning, winter, New Year's Eve, 2019. Decided to spend the last day of 2019 hiking in the southern Appalachian Mountains. And we're high enough now that we're into the land of balsams and firs, which are trees that you more associate with latitude, higher latitudes, so farther north than here. But the great thing about elevation is that the higher you go up, the more it resembles high latitude environments. So let's see what we find today. Cool, clean mountain air combined with all of the rain they get down here means the lichen communities are off the hook. This tree is covered in lichen, and the whole way up here we could just see tons of green covered trees. Believe it or not, this is a shrub. It just tends to amble along the ground. Its stems just at or below the soil surface. This is creeping Arbutus, beautiful ericad that in the spring will have nice white flowers on it. Does not respond well to trampling, so anywhere where people tend to walk a lot, it gets destroyed. But up on these protected banks here, it's doing well. Evergreen, and you can see it gets purple, which is anthocyanin pigments, which both protect it against sun and freezing temperatures. Likes acidic soils too. I think it's gonna be a windy day.
What?
But into the trail we go. Now, this is your typical spruce-fir forest in here, interspersed with birches and whatnot. What's cool about these high elevation habitats, especially in the southern Blue Ridge area, is that there is an endemic tarantula. Yes, tarantula that lives only in a few isolated areas in places like this, and it lives in the moss at the bases of spruce and firs. But it's isolated up here in little pockets because this type of habitat is not contiguous. It just kind of hops along high enough peaks. And so it's one of those species that can be isolated and is at risk from climate change. Just to give you some evidence of how cold it is up here, some nice frost heave. It's pretty. Listen to that wind. So this is a balsam fir, and one of the key diagnostic characters are these little pockets of resinous sap just under the bark's surface there. And yeah, as anyone that's gotten sap like this in their hair, they know that this is a pretty effective anti-feeding, among other things. It's just a really nice way to identify these trees. Ooh, the wind is pretty intense up here, and the temperature is pretty cold, but we have this trail to ourselves right now. What do you see?
Big rock outcropping.
Oh yeah, look at that. Nice. Now the vegetation that isn't evergreen tends to be pretty stunted and shrubby, just because the wind, as you can hear, is so brutal up here. But look at these views. Just can't argue with that. Nice Usnea lichen here. You know, southern Appalachia is a temperate rainforest, and lichens love that. I think this is the remains of a smilax vine. Gardeners talk about winter interest. That's a pretty interesting structure, huh? Look at this amelanchier. It is covered in lichens and liverworts. Let's get some magnification, see if we can identify any of these. Or really, if you guys can identify any of these. So this beautiful red liverwort here, I believe, is a Frulania. It's really thriving on the sheltered side of this tree here. Look at that. Again, chock full of anthocyanins, protecting it from the elements. Pretty hardy for a non-vascular. Now that's what I call a Frulania colony. Look at the density of growth. Amazing. Here we have some lichen with different types of apothecia. think that's the main body of the lichen there. But these, I always call these golf tee apothecia. They're such neat little spore dispersing structures. It's the British soldier lichen. That's the weird apothecia there. These little red caps, hence the name. Now the interesting thing about these is supposedly these can take upwards of a decade to form on a mature lichen specimen. It's pretty impressive. These have been growing here undisturbed. But it just goes to show you how lichens can be a sort of indicator of disturbance and other human activities. Ecosystem health. Look at this lichen. And look at that lichen. What are all of these? Help me out here. I love how clearly demarcated the lines are between these two lichen species. Cool to think about competition among lichens. You know, these sessile little organisms that no one really thinks about as even being alive. But they're living out their lives. The same rules and laws that govern the rest of life. Oh look, more Frulania. Can you tell I like this liverwort? And last but definitely not least, we have these moss communities. Again, not sure what these are, but I think it's kind of cool. You can see the little leaflets or whatever you call those are curled up. This moss is dehydrated, which probably keeps it from freezing to death. But that'll rehydrate as soon as temperatures and moisture return. It's our old friend the polypody fern. Although this one is a bit more dehydrated than the last few we saw in the previous video. It'll rehydrate. Look at this community of polypody next to some very beautiful moss. Sarah just heard some kinglets, so we stopped at this incredible rock outcrop. Look at that. Some cool sort of prostrate spruce up there. Hard to see. Lots of beautiful moss, but plenty of ice. This ain't just any old moss. This is sphagnum moss. Completely frozen solid. But every once in a while, if you get enough water and light, and the sphagnum mat builds down, you will get carnivorous plants up here. Doubt we'll see any today though. Nice. We got a really cool lichen here called rock tripe. Forms these big mats, and apparently it's edible, hence the tripe name. Although I don't imagine it's very tasty. More of a soup thickener. But it is hardy despite being pretty flimsy looking. Here's what's left of the summer's lilies. Probably Turk's cap, but could be the Carolina lily too. Turns out lily seeds are equally as pretty as the flowers themselves. Look at those blown away on the slightest breeze. Let's go do some seed dispersal. This yellow birch is demonstrating a cool quirk of yellow birch germination and growth. See how it's stilted on this old stump here? Yellow birches, and birches in general, I'm pretty sure, can't really germinate in a duff layer or where there's a lot of shade, so they tend to germinate on old logs like this, and then they just kind of grow their roots down into them, eventually reaching the surface, or the soil there. But what's cool is this will eventually rot away and you'll just have a big stilted tree in the middle of the forest. Neat. I did not expect to see this in such good condition. Not this time of year at least. This is lung lichen, probably my favorite lichen in southern Appalachia. In the summer this is much greener, more like that moss there, but pretty neat. And those right there are the apothecia. I've actually never seen reproductive structures on this before. And look, it's got little Philania growing on it. Nice find. Hey look, we've got an Appalachian endemic right here underneath these polypody. This is a beautiful little saxifrage that tends to grow in rock outcroppings, although it will live in moss as well. Beautiful in the summer, and absolutely gorgeous flowers. See, this is what I was talking about. Here's a really cool stilted birch. And you can see that it germinated probably up there on a stump, and now the stump has rotted away for the most part. All that's left are those stilted roots. But here's something fun as well. A little snacky poo area for red squirrels. Those are all cone scales. Someone likes to eat over here. Why not? It's sheltered. Cool. We've got a different kind of fern here. At the moment of filming this, I don't know what it is, but I will be sure to put the name underneath it here. Growing in the cracks of this rock outcropping. Another nice Appalachian endemic, the mountain sweet pepper bush. It's got this very characteristic flaky bark. I almost walked right by these little oxalis. They're all tucked away in the duff, with their leaves down, hunkered out, avoiding the cold ass wind. Well, if it isn't my old friend Galax, this is actually one of my study species. I call it beetleweed. And you'll find this in deep, dense Appalachian cove forests and all the way up on little rock outcrops at high elevation like this. It's a very adaptable species. Mossy goodness. Hey little friend.
Spider?
Yeah, we're at almost 6,000 feet and this little one's walking around out here. It's pretty warm in the sun, I have to admit. Who are you? For the record, I don't think this is the tarantula. I would be very surprised if it was. I think we'll end this glorious hike with a couple of lycopods. Just growing in the shade of this calmia. And here's another. This one's full of strobolite.